It is 2 p.m. in New York, 7 in London, and 4 on a Thursday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. You're watching ARIRANG, Korea's only global network. Now, Korea is aiming to cut 110,000 mandatory active duty soldiers from its ranks by 2022. The Defense Ministry said in a defense reform proposal on this Thursday that it will cut 40,000 troops over the next 5 years and 70,000 more between 2019 and 2022. Now, to fill the gap, the number of non-commissioned officers would be increased from the current 30% to 43% by 2025. The ministry will also focus on developing the kill chain in Korean air and missile defense systems, which can detect and destroy missiles and nuclear weapons from North Korea. It will also increase the amount of high-tech gadgetry in its arsenal, boosting the military's operational capability by up to 4 times. The military estimates that it will take over $201 billion over the next 5 years to implement the plan. Now, North Korea has turned down South Korea's proposal for Red Cross working level talks. The North said through the Inter-Korean hotline on this Thursday that a good atmosphere for discussing reunions for war-separated families has not been created. Well, it also noted the issue of holding the reunions on a regular basis should not be discussed between Red Cross officials. Experts had earlier speculated the North would want to hold talks at a higher level. Seoul's Unification Ministry said it is currently reviewing what steps to take next. North Korea's response comes a day after the South offered to meet for Red Cross talks next Wednesday. President Park Geun-hye has vowed to ensure there are no welfare blind spots in the Korean society. Now, she also pledged to open an era of trust and peace on the Korean peninsula. Speaking at the annual National Prayer Breakfast Thursday, President Park said Korea is at the point of having to lay the groundwork to take the next leap through economic and social innovation and achieve happiness and a peaceful reunification on the peninsula. In order to get there, the president said straightening out irregularities in society, including corruption and graft, would be a pressing matter. The Korean leader then said she will make sure every citizen has the means to fully achieve their potential and enjoy the fruits of economic growth. Now, over in the U.S., another huge step was made in the push for the dual use of the Korean name East Sea and the Japanese name Sea of Japan in school textbooks in the state of Virginia. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
The so-called East Sea Bill has passed the Virginia House of Delegates, the last phase of the legislative process, in an 82-16 vote. The bill requires all textbooks approved by the Board of Education to note that the Sea of Japan is also referred to as the Korean name East Sea. As the bill passed the state Senate in January, it now only requires the governor's signature for it to become law. Governor Terry McAuliffe is expected to sign the bill by early April at the latest, and the bill will take effect from July 1st. The passing of the bill is a major victory for the state's estimated 82,000 Korean American residents. They had to overcome intense lobbying by the Japanese government, in which Tokyo warned it might reconsider Japanese investment in the state. The Korean American community in Virginia has been pushing hard for the change since the early 1990s. They, as well as all Koreans, view the Sea of Japan designation as an unpleasant reminder of Japan's brutal colonization of the Korean peninsula in the early to mid-20th century. The Korean American community aims to further introduce the dual naming bill in U.S. states with high Korean American populations like California, New York, and New Jersey. They ultimately hope to change the U.S. government's single name policy regarding sea names. The International Hydrographic Organization, or IHO, published a book designating official names of the seas in 1929. Japan registered the name Sea of Japan to refer to the body of water that separates Korea and Japan. However, as Korea was colonized by Japan back then, it had no way to voice its opposition on the world stage. The Korean government has been calling for the IHO to change the current single name of the sea to at least a dual naming, as the term East Sea has been used in Korea for thousands of years. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
High-level diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis in Ukraine failed to make much headway at talks in Paris on Wednesday. Now, Washington and Moscow were unable to see eye to eye, while Russia refused to recognize the interim Ukrainian government. As our Connie Kim reports, the top diplomats of the two countries continue their talks on this Thursday.
International efforts to resolve the crisis in Ukraine took baby steps forward in Paris Wednesday, with the United States and Russia agreeing to continue talks the next day, but no progress was made between Russia and the new Ukrainian government. Speaking after the meeting, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said talks with Russia will continue to try and de-escalate the crisis.
We agreed to continue intense discussions in the coming days with Russia, with the Ukrainians, in order to see how we can help normalize the situation, stabilize it, and overcome the crisis.
Kerry said there were no expectations that the talks would resolve the conflict, but added there are a number of ideas on the table. U.S. officials say Kerry had presented Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov with a plan for restoring Ukraine's sovereignty, while addressing Moscow's concerns about its Black Sea Fleet and the many ethnic Russians that live in eastern Ukraine. The two are expected to meet again in Rome on Thursday. Lavrov confirmed that the talks would continue, but discussions between Russia and Ukraine did not materialize, with the Russian foreign minister calling Ukraine's new government illegitimate. In Brussels, NATO announced there will be no talks with Moscow after Russian President Vladimir Putin refused to pull out Russian forces from Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula, where the tense standoff continues between pro-Russian forces and the Ukrainian military. NATO said it'll also back out from a joint mission linked to Syrian chemical weapons and help build the capacity of the Ukrainian military. Meanwhile, the European Union has unveiled a package of aid and grants to Ukraine's new government worth some $15 billion over the next couple of years. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And this just in less than an hour ago, the website of major Korean telecommunications company KT Telecom was found to have been hacked, compromising the personal data of 12 million clients, including their resident registration numbers and bank account numbers. That is the majority of the telecom's 16 million clients. The Incheon Metropolitan Police Agency has reportedly arrested 2 people suspected of hacking the system and selling the data for $10.8 million. KT has yet to confirm that report, and we will bring you more updates in our later newscasts as the story develops. Meanwhile, just a while earlier than that, the Financial Supervisory Service here in Korea has dismissed a case related to a recent data leak that affected millions here in Korea. The financial watchdog said Thursday that its deliberation committee had rejected a claim filed by Financial Consumer Agency Chief Cho Nam-hee on behalf of 200 consumers, demanding compensation for damages incurred as a result of the massive data leak. Well, the FSS said the committee dismissed the claim because Cho and the 200 people who are part of that claim had failed to provide any new evidence about the incident, which compromised the personal information held by the several financial institutions in January. Cho now says he will file for a formal objection to the FSS decision after revising that claim. The Korean government has unveiled a set of measures to ease regulations that hamper corporate merger and acquisition activities. Now, this move is aimed at fostering venture startups into global companies, and it comes as part of the government's 3-year economic innovation plan. ARIRANG News Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Boosting mergers and acquisitions is standing out as one of the key agenda items in the 3-year economic innovation plan laid out by the Park Geun-hye administration. The administration aims to create a virtuous circle where venture startups can grow into global companies through the active participation of private equity funds and strategic investors in the mergers and acquisitions market. Finance Minister Hyun Woo-seok said Thursday that the government will streamline tax and financial support systems to remove regulations that hinder corporate M&A activities.
The government will expand the size of a growth fund for the merger and acquisition activities of venture firms and small and medium-sized companies to around $930 million within the next 3 years.
Hyun said, citing a local report, that the nation's M&A market could nearly double in 2017 from last year to $65 billion with the set of measures the government has laid out. To reach these goals, he emphasized the importance of M&A market participants like companies and investors making good use of the measures. The Finance Ministry said the local M&A market has continued to shrink after the global financial crisis in 2007 and 2008, while the size is smaller than those in other advanced economies. It added that a sluggish M&A market prevents the kind of voluntary business restructuring that allows companies to focus their investments on core areas. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Now, speaking of which, at the core of President Park Geun-hye's initiative for building a creative economy lie the country's SMEs and venture startups. And today, the government announced an ambitious new program aimed at giving these companies a leg up as they're getting off the ground. Our Na Hyun-kyung tells us what the program entails.
Only 30% of the nation's startups survive to the age of 5, according to recent Statistics Korea data, which is one of the reasons why the government is trying to turn the tables for young entrepreneurs who are willing to test creative new ideas. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning has fleshed out its ambitious plan to launch what's widely known as an accelerator program. The Korean government's version of the program aims to help startups by providing a packaged service. A small group, fewer than 10, of wannabe entrepreneurs with creative and unique ideas will be selected in each round. They will be given 3 to 6 months of mentoring and training prior to opening up their businesses, and then they will have a chance to make pitches aimed at locking down investment. After the business is launched, these up-and-coming firms will be provided with marketing and retail networking services so they can break into the domestic market. Not only that, a selected few promising companies will get additional support in tapping into the global market. A total of 10 billion won, or roughly $9.4 million, will be injected into this program this year. The ministry plans to form a special consultative body for the accelerator program by mid-March and has also called on conglomerates to launch similar programs to fund and nurture the nation's startups. Na Hyun-kyung, ARIRANG News.
When the latest news meets the latest business stories, we give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Business Today with Moon Gon-young. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
The chief of SK Group will step down from his post as chairman after being found guilty of embezzling company funds. Now, this will remove the 53-year-old Choi Tae-won from management, but he will remain a major shareholder in the group, the country's third largest conglomerate. Now, Choi was sentenced to a 4-year prison term last week for embezzling $47 million from company affiliates and using the money for personal investments. Now, Choi isn't the only conglomerate boss to step down after a corruption conviction. The chairman of Hanwha Group, Kim Seung-yeon, stepped down from executive positions at company affiliates last month after the courts found him guilty of corruption. The chairman of CJ Group is also expected to step down later this month for the same reasons. LG Electronics is quickly catching up to its smartphone rivals Samsung Electronics and Apple. The company rose to third in global smartphone sales last year, beating out companies like HTC and Sony and jumping up from 6th in 2012. Now, market researcher Strategy Analytics said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about $11.1 billion last year, which is about 4% of the industry's combined revenue. The rise in sales was attributed to the popularity of its high-end models such as the Optimus G, G Pro, and G2 smartphones. A new school year has begun for many Korean students this week. More than 70% of high school graduates in Korea go off to college, but not all of them attend what you'd call a traditional university. A growing number are going online to do their studies, and our Kwon So-ah reports.
The excitement is in the air at Seoul National University's orientation ceremony, where thousands of new students are marking the start of a 4-year journey. It's the same scene at another welcoming event for freshmen at another university. But here at Seoul Cyber University, students do not walk around the campus looking for their classrooms. They jump on the internet to take their classes. Moon So-yoon is a Cyber University sophomore. She graduated from a 2-year college program but became interested in counseling psychology and tried to find a way to balance a job and her studies.
The biggest advantage of taking cyber university classes is that you have no restrictions as to time, location, or age.
So-yoon says sudden pop quizzes and discussions make the courses more interactive.
Many cyber universities do not limit their education to online classes, but give students the opportunity to take part in offline courses and activities at their offline campuses.
Professors say online classes are not only good for students, but for teachers as well.
For professors of offline universities, it's not easy to receive feedback or monitor yourself. And that goes for me too, as I've worked at conventional universities for 10 years. But since my classes are now filmed, I can get concrete feedbacks.
There were only 9 cyber universities in Korea in 2001. Today, there are 21. The number of cyber students is on the rise too, jumping from 6,000 in 2001 to nearly 115,000 in 2013. Experts attribute the jump to the increasing number of students pursuing lifelong education. Much lower tuition prices have also played a role. However, cyber universities still face challenges compared to brick-and-mortar institutions.
I think it's credibility of a cyber university degree is right now is ongoing examination period of time. Some areas is their quality is doubt is in terms of their degree programs and the methodology of teaching and learning and their job skills, etc.
Despite the self-evident figures and the increasing popularity of cyber universities, it will take time for them to develop the respect afforded to conventional schools. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Now, Korea has a notorious reputation when it comes to people taking their own lives, with its suicide rate the highest in the OECD. New data released by Statistics Korea on Thursday shows the number of suicides has tripled in the past 2 decades to 28 people per 100,000 in 2012 from 8 per 100,000 in 1992. Well, Korea's suicide rate has also risen at the fastest pace in the OECD, jumping by over 100% from 2000 to 2010. Now, in contrast, Japan's suicide rate in the same period was at -5%. The data also shows that 1 in every 5 Koreans who have committed suicide in the last 20 years did so due to financial difficulties. And for a closer look into this issue, we are joined live in the studio by Dr. Kim Byung-ju, the head of KLMP Consulting, and our regular commentator on this program. Welcome to the program, Dr. Kim.
Thank you.
Now, as we just reported, we have new reports reminding us of this fast rising suicide rate here in Korea.
Right.
And 1 in every 5 suicides are related to economic hardships.
Right, indeed. This is a real problem. Not only just 1 out of every 5 suicides are related to the economic hardships, but also there are indicators that seems to show that actually the number could actually go up in this regard, because what you're talking about was pretty much based on the Statistics Korea's new numbers regarding what was happening in 2012. And in that 2012 survey, what people were saying was as many as about like a 10%, about 9% or so of Koreans sometimes feel the urge for suicide, and so that's pretty high as it is. But of course, the degree of urge would vary, but about 9 to 10% of the Korean survey said they feel the urge for suicide once in a while. And among them, almost close to 40% are saying that's because of the economic-related reasons. So indeed, there is a potential for that number to go up, and that is very much concerning. And as you mentioned already, this makes Korea, already as it is, a country that has the largest number of suicide per population, and also fastest rising of the suicide ratio here. And in a way, from a social scientist perspective, this is kind of curious, because in countries where there are real economic hardships, people do try what they can in order to survive and maintain their livelihood. But here in Korea, where the economic, overall economic livelihood itself and income level is one of the top 10 countries in the world, now we see these people committing suicide because of the economic reasons. So I think there are much more social scientific research that needs to be done in order to de-link this kind of, or analyze the cause, the real deeper cause behind this.
Right, definitely a social problem, a social trend that needs to be looked at rather than just numbers and figures, economic figures. Now, the support obligation law is being criticized for blocking the welfare benefits for the actual needy.
Right, exactly. I mean, when we talk about economic hardships as a key cause for suicide, we got to look into why this is happening. And as you mentioned earlier in this program, President Park Geun-hye mentioning welfare blind sites. If we have enough of a welfare system that covers everybody that are in need, we should be able to reduce these suicide rates, and that is a real concern. And in talking about this, people are talking about the law that's in place about the obligation for support. What the law says is immediate families, like parents and children, if someone is in need, they should support them. If they, meaning these immediate families, parents or children, have enough of economic wealth. And in Korea, the economic wealth is often, these assets are defined by the housing. And often in Korea, especially in Seoul, many of the parents and children often owns these apartment housings. And when they have that kind of ownership, those people, their immediate families, children or parents, cannot get the welfare support from the government. And now the problem is, it's hard to get rid of or sell these assets and then convert them into a cash and actually support them to begin with, number one. Number two is, all family relationships are different, right? Only because your immediate parents or your immediate family members, such as your parents and children, have these kind of assets, does not really necessarily mean that you have that necessary support base right there. So indeed, people are saying this law itself is not very focused enough and delicate enough, and we got to do something about that law.
Right, delicate enough to touch upon all corners of different scenarios.
Exactly.
Now, and the disability classification system, that's another target for a similar abolition drive.
Right, indeed. In Korea, we have 6 different classes of disability, and class number 1, number 2, those are more serious ones, and for them, people with this, first degree, second degree disabilities do receive government support in terms of welfare payments and all that, because they are viewed as the people who cannot maintain economic activities. But from degree 3 down to 6, they enjoy a lot of different conveniences and services and stuff, but they do not receive government's active support for their welfare or economic income. And this is the point people are complaining about. These people often cannot really engage themselves in economic activities, but still, because of that classification, they are not eligible for this. So a lot of people with disabilities are arguing, and they are actually staging demonstrations and all that, arguing for abolition of this class system.
Now, of course, the conservatives have their own concerns regarding the abolition of these kind of arguments.
Of course. I mean, there will be all case-by-cases here. And if we abolish everything and then begin offering government supports to everybody who has disabilities, of course, that will be very wasteful from economist perspective. And if we offer everybody this welfare support, regardless of these assets and the wealth of the immediate families, of course that will be very wasteful. So there is a conflict between macro level tragedies, sufferings on one hand, and micro level sufferings and then tragedies on one hand, but macro concerns about waste and rationality here. So we have to really balance very, very carefully here.
So this really is a dilemma. Do you have any way out of this?
I may not, but different experts have suggested different ideas here. For instance, number one, regulation about this support obligations. We can make it more precise, more focused, and add more conditions to make it more effective there. And then also a lot of action-wise on the government side, people are saying that government officials should go out there and search for the people who are in need and have these exceptional cases. And also, we can do much more about the suicide-related preventions as well. So there's a long list of actions that can be done.
All right. Well, this is nothing to be proud of, a high suicide rate, and it's something that we need to tackle as a society as a whole.
Absolutely.
All right, Dr. Kim Byung-ju, thank you so much for today. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay.
And that's all the time we have for this broadcast. Thank you for watching. I'll see you back here in less than 2 hours' time on Early Edition at 6.